Hey, how do you like this? I'm Dan Israel, and you're watching Tomwashere.
Okay, so it's been a little while since I've done one of these, and we're going to talk about the series finale of The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead used to be appointment television. I know some of you may not realize that now, but there was a time when The Walking Dead was the best show on TV. It was that good. It was something you build your schedule around. And The Walking Dead's biggest strength in those early seasons led to its biggest weakness in the last few seasons. And have kind of culminated almost to like the series finale was kind of a microcosm of the last few seasons of The Walking Dead. And when I say last few, I mean like 5 or 6. I mean it definitely overstayed its welcome. But with the series finale of The Walking Dead, there is a glaring issue that it seems that The Walking Dead has kind of failed for many years based on this result. And that is, in the early seasons of The Walking Dead, there was a risk involved. Every character at any moment could have been on the chopping block. They could have died the next day. The uncertainty of it all. And violently. This is a violent pull-no-punches show. And the Negan incident, where many people actually turned on The Walking Dead, because even though it was still to that point appointment television for the most part, the Negan thing with Glenn and Abraham sealed The Walking Dead's fate. And that it hit its apex. It arguably is when it jumped the shark, kind of. Although, you could argue that was later as well. Because after that point, a lot of people turned away from The Walking Dead. And truth be told, even the writers, it seems the writers turned away from The Walking Dead for the most part, because they never came up with something as interesting as that moment. And everything since, almost they kind of learned a lesson from the Negan thing, because the Negan thing was so intense that they're like, oh, we can't really have any risks anymore. And the series finale is basically the result of what it is when you play it safe. Because the series finale of The Walking Dead did not feel like a series finale at all. It felt like the end of a season, and then the new season would start out with some new threat. Like, they wanted to give them a happy ending, but they've done this before. And there was no happy ending. It's just a temporary time. Like, they're making it seem like they took over the world. Like, they ended the apocalypse and they were going to all start anew. When deep down, this has happened before on this show. Where they thought the threat was over and then a new threat shows up. No, they cleared out one small portion of Virginia. And they're like, well, problem solved. No. There's people everywhere. There's new threats constantly. That's what this whole show is all about. To a crazy extent, to the extent that they extended it far longer than it should, it makes for nonsensity at this point. Like, it's nonsense that they're making it seem like, well, we're good now, happy ending for everybody. Not a happy ending for everybody. It's just the time in between another threat pops up. The small window. And if, some dummy's going to be, if they're able to get through all these seasons, some dummy's going to end up binge watching this on Netflix 10 years from now, and they're going to get to the series finale and not paying attention because they're binging, and then they're going to go, where's the next season? Wait, that was the series finale? That's it? Right. And I call that person a dummy, and they're not a dummy. They would have the same reaction that anybody else would have, which is, this is not a series finale. There's nothing risky. You played it way too safe. You couldn't even kill off the sub characters. They played it so safe that they kept almost everyone alive. What's the point? What benefit is it that all these people are alive? Other than you don't want to upset people. So you played it safe. And that's weak. It's weak. I'm not saying you had to kill everybody. But, like, for example, alright. So, you knew there would be somebody that's been on the show for a long time that would have to die. It would only made sense. And they did that. But only one person. And don't get me started on the music teacher dude and his girlfriend. Which, by the way, those sub-B characters, I'll be honest, I don't know their names. I've watched every episode of The Walking Dead. I cannot tell you most of these people's names. The Australian lady that was the lawyer, the waitress, was she a waitress? Friend that they were like dating, the one deaf lady and her sister, the music teacher guy, and then his girlfriend. They were replacement D characters who ultimately, now that we've seen the series finale, were filler. They never did anything truly substantial for me in this regard. Maybe the most notable thing that happened was when the deaf girl got caught in the cave when it blew up, way back when, and then she was missing for like a season or two or whatever. That would be the only thing substantial they did besides little B plots that ultimately didn't go anywhere. They were the B group. Let's not kid ourselves. They were the B group. And they brought back the music teacher who, I'll be honest, I forgot was alive. I know they left he and his girlfriend in like Oceanside or whatever, but they left him like 2 seasons ago. Then they show up the episode before the finale, and then they die in the finale. Like, that's supposed to add some sort of weight? We forgot these characters existed. And that's part of the problem with The Walking Dead. They'll bring a character, their cast is so massive, but filled with mostly people you don't care about. It didn't start out that way. From the jump, you were on board with, like, Rick, with Lori, with, Glenn, even Maggie, and they added her in the second season, with these Herschel. They added all these characters, and then they ballooned these characters so much out that by the last few seasons, it's like, oh, here's this random guy. You remember Random Guy? Random Guy was with Maggie's group when she decided to take a sabbatical and do an ABC sitcom for a season. And then for a few weeks, the people that Maggie brought back when she returned to the show got killed off, and it was supposed to add some emotional weight, but you didn't care about them, that they existed. And it didn't add any weight to anything at all. It was just filler. Like I said, I've mentioned this before, but this is it always comes back to Star Trek, where they go to a new planet, they get all the main characters, and then there's a guy that's a red shirt. And the red shirt guy gets killed. The Walking Dead, the last few seasons, basically only killed off red shirt people. Just randoms that you didn't give a crap about, or they tried to add something like, oh, he was that guy. He had left Negan's group, and he was one of the good ones, and then he just randomly dies off camera. You remember him? You feel the weight of his death? No, I don't even remember his name. They didn't have the, early on they had the gall to kill off people just on a whim. When was the last risk that The Walking Dead took? Was it the Alpha, the heads on the spikes thing? Maybe? Or Jesus? Maybe? I was trying to think of the last time they were risky. Where they were like, well, we'll take this chance by killing off this person. But in those last couple seasons, like, they made it seem like the Commonwealth was some big threat. Who did they kill? Who did the Commonwealth kill from the group? No one. No one that I remember. Maybe there was someone. I can't remember who it was. Wasn't anybody important. And they were the threat. They were the big bad threat at the end. Why? There's no threat. No threat if you don't kill off anyone. Where's the stakes? Where are the stakes? In the early seasons of Walking Dead, there were stakes. People would randomly, it's like this person, hey, you like them, whatever. Boom, they got bit. Now, they had chances in this finale episode to kill off people. Didn't have the courage to do it. They could have killed off Lydia. Would have been fine. Would have been fine. They couldn't do that. They could have killed off Jerry. Jerry got broken up from the group, just shows up randomly. They could have killed off Aaron. Anybody. No, they decide to kill off Rosita, and not even in a good way. Like, there could have been a way where she, like, as she was falling, or maybe on top of the ambulance was getting overrun, she threw the baby to them, and then, ended up fighting them until she got pulled under. But no, they had her fight her way out, only to be like, well, hey, I got bit, you guys, and have some sad, dramatic ending. No! Where are the risky deaths? And where's the blood and gore and... This is The Walking Dead. When they cut off Herschel's leg, or was it leg? It was leg, right? Yeah, when they cut off Herschel's leg in the prison, they literally showed the axe hit and his leg pop off. When they cut off Lydia's arm or hand or whatever, they cut away. This is The Walking Dead as it's been the last few years. Sure, they had some gory effects with like walkers and stuff, but they toned it down that I can remember on the human violence for the most part. Like, you didn't see someone truly get, from what I remember, unless they were people not of note. Someone of note, you didn't see truly get like in those early seasons, you'd see him get, eaten or, ripped into a little bit. But no, they don't have that. They played it way safe. No, they could swear, but where did that benefit them? They could drop an F-bomb here or there, but it never truly held any impact, especially because the early seasons, they could have done that and had some impact, and they didn't do it. It just comes down to a general sense of disappointment on what The Walking Dead had become at this point, which was very, very low risk, keeping people together so they could just turn up in one of these random spin-offs they're doing. And also, let's talk about that for a second. Okay, so there's 3 spin-offs coming to The Walking Dead. There's the Isle of the Dead, which is Maggie and Negan. But it's not Maggie and Negan, and you know it won't be. Because the way they set up Maggie and Negan's episodes was, Maggie's like, there's a whole world out there we can explore. So she didn't get separated from the group. So guaranteed, the Maggie and Negan show, for the most part, will be a continuation of The Walking Dead. That's why they didn't kill anyone off. She's not isolated. They didn't kidnap her and Negan and put them in New York and they got to fight their way out. No, Maggie's taking a trip to New York. That means random people from The Walking Dead will trickle their way to New York as well, as guest stars for a spot. Maybe they'll kill off one early on to add to the emotional impact, to try to get you hooked back in. Except for, they didn't have the courage to do it in the Walking Dead finale, so it doesn't matter if they do it at the beginning of the Negan one, Maggie and Negan one. She got a one-line throwaway to set up her spinoff. Daryl? He got a no-line throwaway to set up his spinoff. And I'm not a TV writer, but I could have come up with something far better than that. So he drove off. They had this moment with him and Carol before he drove off that was very sad, emotional, but pandering to the audience. Because a scene before, when Daryl shows up, he runs into Judith. Judith says, "Hey, traveler," like he's just been out on a run. So Carol, there's no reason for Carol to get emotional that Daryl's going out on another run unless it was, well, it's a series finale, so we gotta have some finality to it. It was pandering to the audience. Didn't make any sense. It made sense to the finale for the characters, that is, as the show is ending, but it didn't make any sense for the show and how it's set up. Because Daryl always goes on runs. He doesn't live in the same Commonwealth compound that everybody else did. He's on the road. He's roaming around looking for stuff. So why did she get so emotional this time? They said her love yous and their goodbyes, but he's like, "I'll be back." Of course you will. The show must go on. And that's where The Walking Dead is weak in this regard. Because they can have these characters pop up in all these little spin-offs they're doing. That's why they didn't kill anyone off. So they could appear. So they could add some weight, like, oh, you'll never guess who shows up. You know, the deaf girl, or the Australian lawyer, you know, one of those people. Hey, Carol's gonna pop up here and there. Hey, this person's gonna show up here and there. No. No. You kill them off. You can't have a finale of a show that's The Walking Dead, where in the early seasons they killed off everybody. Just everybody on a whim. Just randomly, people would just be like, oh, you like this character? Cool, he's dead now. This B crew come in, and they had the emotion, you know, they're very upset because their music friend died at the end. The person you forgot about for 2 seasons. There's no benefit to keeping these people alive other than you're going to attempt to spin them off into these new shows. And that's what they're trying to do here. And that made The Walking Dead weak at the end. The finale was weak. It was weak. They didn't have the courage to do anything final. Announcing that there were all these spin-offs coming before the final season made you realize that, you know, they're like, so the whole hook of what everybody thought is that, okay, wow, it's the season finale, you know, they're actually going to close out The Walking Dead. Are they going to kill off any of, like, the major characters on the show? No. You knew that going in. You knew that going in because they announced the Daryl Dixon spinoff. They announced a Maggie and Negan spinoff. They announced the Rick and Michonne spinoff. So there's 3 separate spinoffs, and you knew all those characters were safe. So when it got to that point in Alexandria, where Negan was like, oh, I'm the traitor, and then, you know, Ezekiel and all these people came up, and they stood in waiting for them, waiting in front of the firing squad. He stood in front of him, and then all these other people stood in front of him, and then he's like, all right, cool, kill them all. At no point was there any real threat in that, because you knew they weren't all going to die. At least you knew Negan wasn't going to die, and Negan was right in with that group. So if Negan's there, those people are all protected. So there's no threat there. You know, the finale, Daryl carries Judith into the hospital and puts Judith on a gurney, and then the guy hits him on the head and he gets knocked out. And then Judith is half in a stupor and sees the zombies, walkers coming in, and closes all the doors, and then she passes out in the hospital. Were you worried that Daryl wasn't going to make it? No. He has a show. He has a new show. 2023. There's nothing, there was no sense of like, ooh, these characters are in real danger at any point. I'm sorry. Correct me if I'm wrong. And also, let me know, did you make it to the end of The Walking Dead? Are you here? Or did you give up pre-Negan Glenn hit to the head or post-Negan Glenn hit to the head? When did you ultimately give up on The Walking Dead? And if you made it all the way to the end, as I have, did you like this finale? Or did you think it was garbage? For me personally, it wasn't garbage, it was insulting. It was insulting because they didn't do anything to add any, there was no finality to it. What was the finale? Now, cool, as I mentioned in the spinoffs, Daryl Dixon rode off on his bike. He's going to ride that bike all the way to France because apparently Daryl Dixon's spinoff is located in Europe. So what if, and like I said, I'm no writer here, but what if he's driving along on the motorcycle, driving along, and then suddenly there's a tripwire in the road. He hits the tripwire, he doubles over the handlebars, he lands on the ground, he spins around a little bit, he's jacked up. These military dudes come out, they gather him up, they throw him in a truck. You don't even have to explain that the truck goes to a plane that goes to Europe. They don't have to explain that part. Just that he was taken. That's all it would take. But no, that is his finale send-off. He just drives off into the sun. Eventually going to make his way to Europe. Don't know how. Don't know why. What they'll do is exactly what, because I was talking, my mom was a big Walking Dead fan, and I was talking to my mom about this. She goes, that's how it's going to start. It's going to start in Europe, they won't explain how he got there, and then they'll backtrack, because that's the Walking Dead's way to do that. And she's right. They didn't want to show that he was taken or captured or whatever. They haven't got to that part yet. And once again, garbage. Then they have Rick and Michonne at the end. Obviously clips from their new show and not necessarily from, to end The Walking Dead. They're just setting up the new show. And don't get me wrong, I'm kind of excited for Rick and Michonne because Rick especially was the character I was in with on The Walking Dead. Like, he was the guy from the jump that you were on board with. So, but they'll find a way to screw that up. But anyway, so Rick, the idea is that they're talking over, they made it real artistic, like they're talking to each other with a fire, but really they're talking in different timelines. Because if you notice, they showed Rick throw the phone that had the little picture he drew on the boat, and that's the phone that Michonne finds later on that same boat, earlier in The Walking Dead. And so she's using that phone. The problem is they're nowhere near in the same place. Rick, is outside of, it looks like New York City when he does this, and who knows where he is now. And Michonne is in the desert. At least it looks like that. And she starts running up to this, large group of walkers with one sword. And I get that it was somebody thought up this cool shot, but didn't think up the logistics of it. Like, for example, how many people... Because it was say 100,000 people, or, that's what it looked like 100,000 people. Think of a college football stadium that's full. That is about how many people it looked like, possibly more. And she's going to run in with her horse and her sword and look all dramatic and cool. Except for one, how did they get 100,000 people in the desert just randomly milling around? Because they forget that the dead used to be alive people. And it's not near a major city. That would kind of make sense. But no, the dead just walked out to this desert area to mill around waiting for Michonne to come down with her one sword and cut through them. No, it's silly. It doesn't make any sense. But that's The Walking Dead, attempting to do style over substance and accomplishing neither. So it pains me because there was the promise of how good it used to be. But the thing is that you can explain it with just about any other show that's out there. When you stay around too long, eventually you tend to do the things, you tend to just run out of ideas, and you just come up with like, this'll work. Yeah, we gotta figure out some way to like make the walkers a threat again, because we were treating them like wax figures for the most part the last few seasons. We were just moving them out of the way. They were an inconvenience, a slight bother. They treated them like flies for the most part. They're like, more of these, huh? Until they needed them to be a threat. That was The Walking Dead the last few years. The Walking Dead at the beginning, the walkers were the threat. The other people eventually became the threat, but the walkers at the beginning were the threat. And then they were just like, like one would show up and it's like, what an inconvenience. Or whenever they had a group, they're like, and then suddenly there's like 5 of them and surrounded, like 4 walkers come up and they're like, we don't know what to do, man. We don't know. No, it's because you want them to be a threat at this point. But you didn't stop making them a threat for a few seasons while you were doing your human threat thing for so long. Well, now you got to make them a threat. Well, what can we do? What can we do? Oh, I know. We'll have them just randomly pick up like a rock, climb a wall, do all this stuff. There would be the alpha walkers, the ones that figured out that a rock can break glass and they can get closer to their objective. Except for, they introduced this right at the end. Now, is that something where they want to use that same energy to spin it off into new and interesting ways in the new shows? Sure, they could do that. But it also seemed like a team running out of ideas that were just trying to come up with something. We got to come up with something, how they're a threat. Because if they just slow walk around, maybe they're not a threat. No, we'll have them pick up rocks and knives and stuff. Which the one that bent down to pick off the knife in the Horde one and then never did anything with it was stupid. The rock you kind of understand, but not really. And the climbing the walls thing was something where, had to figure out something to do. That they could have just left it at that, to be honest with you. But the Walking Dead finale, were you expecting much? I wasn't expecting much, so maybe I came in a little bit biased because I wasn't expecting a ton with it. I was expecting it to be disappointing. I wanted them to kill off more people. They could have, instead of having the music teacher dude and his girlfriend, they could have made that Aaron, Gabriel, so many other people could have been that would have added some, Jerry, somebody that had some impact. The music teacher dude, just because he was around for a few seasons and then he went off to film The Offer as Francis Ford Coppola, so they had to write him off for, a long time while he was in Oceanside that they also forgot about existing, except for like one random scene here or there. Then, that's where then he shows up and this is the weighty death. This is the one you get sad about. Is Rosita the one you got sad about? Yeah, because she was semi-original, even though she didn't show up till like the 4th or 5th season. I mean, like I said, she was there for the long run. She was a character that would have an impact because she was actually one of the more likable characters on the show, especially when they thinned most of the cast out. But is that enough? Is that enough for? Is there any sense of finality in this for you? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know if you gave up on The Walking Dead or if you finished to its bitter end. But those are my thoughts on the Walking Dead finale. I thought it was weak. I thought it was timid. I thought they took no risks. I thought they could have had a much more emotional impact if they killed off people that you kind of beloved a little bit. It didn't have to be everybody. It just had to be characters that kind of been around a long time that people liked. Like I said, you could have had an Aaron or a Jerry or whatever. You know, even if you want to get real dark, you could have had, say, like Judith or somebody like that, which would have added an emotional hit to that, because it would have been, you know, it would have, like, really, like, wow, like, there's some finality to that. You could have made some finale out of that. But Rosita dying off camera, you didn't get the impact of her either turning or her getting the, you know, that was weak. The music teacher being the only other notable death on that was weak. Them pretending like it was some happy ending thing, that was weak. Just all of it, I wasn't on board with. The way to set up the spin-offs, because if you're doing 3 separate spin-offs, you would find a way to kind of set them up a little bit. I thought they were all poorly handled, except for maybe the Rick Michonne one that was a little bit more fleshed out. Probably the most fleshed out of it, and said it was okay. It's not like I'm not going to watch it. It's just where they're at currently. And you know they're going to eventually find each other. Of course they are, and they're going to have to fight their way out. But I don't know. What concerns me is whether there'll be any sort of satisfying ending to that. And that may be the true ending to The Walking Dead. If Rick and Michonne make their way back to Alexandria and Judith's there and, you know, everybody thinks, and then that's kind of the ending, that might be a little bit better. Maybe a little sappy, a little garbage, but a little bit better. But, anywho, let me know your thoughts on the Walking Dead finale. But guys, thanks so much for watching. If you're new here, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Like to support me on Patreon, you can do so. Link is in the description below. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt, a Tomwashere t-shirt, you can do so at Spreadshirt, as well as links to my eBay store, Facebook page, Instagram, Clubhouse, and the Pennsylvania Autograph Collectors Association. Links are in the description below. The Walking Dead series finale. Not really a series finale. And I feel like the Maggie show is basically going to be a continuation of The Walking Dead. And my guess is they'll probably move someone over to Fear the Walking Dead or something like that. Some other garbage will probably occur. But it was just the lack of them attempting to make any sort of, you know, gut punch that The Walking Dead was known for. When you, like, get this, you know, it's like, oh, I like this character, boo, dead. And they just didn't do it. They couldn't do it. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. And until the next video, I will see you soon. But until then, bye, everyone.